So this should be a good topic. What's the point? Let's say for bookshelf speakers, where you're not getting that much more. Right?
Oh,
a point of diminishing return. From
I don't want to say that. I just said that.
dude, that was one of my questions I was thinking about asking. I was like, I feel like we've talked about this before, but yes,
Yeah, we probably
maybe I was inspired by your video. One of you guys, I watched one of your Elite videos. I can't remember which one of you had me thinking like, yeah, at what point do you even worry about getting a floor standard? Just go with the good.
I think Joe was talking about the difference between the two. I mean, I only had the towers, so like I was like, damn, I wish this thing had 6.5-inch drivers in it.
Right.
But other than that, and that's what the bookshelf has.
Yeah.
So Snoots is saying $2,000 bookshelves here.
2,000.
Yeah.
Because typically I'll say I think this speaker is worth it or not worth it, or this is too expensive. And then I realize everybody has a different budget. What somebody else might think is expensive is it's so different. So it's hard to judge based on just that.
Yeah, I typically don't like people ask me, they're like, hey, is this speaker worth it? And like you said, I tend to not answer that question because I can't answer that for you. I can tell you, is it worth it to my checkbook and to my debit card? But I can't, I can't say that for Jonna. I mean, I can't say that for you or Aaron or anybody else.
It's just tough. It's tough when it comes to speakers because it's almost limitless how expensive it can get.
Correct.
So if you went based on what you said, Jada, of paying for the best one, well, you're going to be paying millions at some point.
We're talking like a 4 to 6 channel mixer, so it's always going to be something small. So it depends on like that application, right? So if you're looking for desktop speakers, sure, you could probably spend thousands of dollars, but you're going to be like, well, I don't want you might limit yourself, even though you could afford it. You might limit yourself to like, I only want to spend $500 on these, or $250 or $300.
I mean,
or whatever.
I've seen like $16,000 bookshelf speakers at trade shows. I'm like, they sound great, but not that great, So
not that great.
Where, for my budget, no, thank you. But there are some guys out there. For them to spend $16,000 might be like me spending $160. It's like, okay, no big deal.
Okay, Reginald, price no object.
Literally. Yeah.
He's gonna have the $16,000 bookshelves.
Yeah. It's good to have you as a patron, Reginald.
Yeah. Yes.
So, well, let's keep it to passive speakers too, because I see Aaron thinking about those Dutch and Dutch 8Cs.
Oh yeah,
and those have a bunch of technology, and
those are
kind of like, I get why those are so expensive. You have a computer in there.
Basically,
But a straight up and think about this. Sometimes I think you're not just paying for the components. I mean, granted, there are times where they're using the more expensive beryllium tweeters, or they're using kind of some more costly woofer material and such. Maybe a fancy finish, but sometimes it's literally cosmetic, and it's the design. I know, thinking back to when we had Sonus Faber on the HiFi Summit, that opened my eyes like big time, kind of their process when they go to designing a speaker, and it's handmade, so you're paying for that too. So sometimes it's not just performance. Sometimes it's for the name. Sometimes it's for the design philosophy behind it,
right?
And how it's going to look in your living room or your home theater.
Yeah, because at some point it's furniture too.
Absolutely, absolutely. You got to look at this every day, and so
there you go.
In a way, it's like art. And what I thought was pretty cool is they mentioned that a lot of times they get their inspiration from like these exotic boats, and that's why they have that round. Is it curvature? I don't know if it's curvature, but basically that round back end. That's right.
There he is. Shauna's not on point. He missed it.
Right? I know it.
Yeah.
There you go.
He said that round bottom end.
So yeah.
So what's that number for passive speakers? I feel like 2,000, around 2,000. It gets weird after that.
I don't know. Like, so to me, the big difference in passive versus floor standing is simply just SPL. Like, how loud do you want to get? I think, because in the SPL, or the floor standard buys you more surface area for woofers. That allows you to get the bass and the higher sensitivity, because then you have baffle step, so you don't lose as much SPL when you have the additional woofers to help compensate for the baffle step loss. And then just overall SPL levels in general. I mean, can your speakers handle that? Probably not out of just a single 6.5-inch woofer, but if you've got 5 or 6 of those bad boys, then different ball game altogether. But then that's the other thing is like, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of different stuff this past weekend. Sound bars, active speakers. I just hooked up these DIY Sound Group 1099s. This thing's ridiculous. They got to 110. I got sent you guys this picture.
Yeah.
I got to 110 dB in my living room at 4 meters.
Not breaking a sweat.
And without breaking a sweat. I mean, it was, and I had hearing protection on. I was like, this is ridiculous. So I've played around with a lot of stuff this weekend, and it's like, I like one thing about this, and I don't like this thing, and I like this other thing. And it's just like, I don't think there's ever going to be the perfect speaker without you really paying up, Yeah. But somebody asked about that KEF R3. And I really like that, but then even that wasn't without its faults. I mean, there's a certain max SPL level that it would hit. You definitely needed a subwoofer for it.
Yep.
So it did a lot of great things in soundstage, but
I had the R300, the previous generation, exactly the same issues. I look gorgeous looking speaker, man.
Right. Yeah.
Lot of cool features, good size to it. It needed a subwoofer. It needed a subwoofer for anything. And when I review bookshelf speakers, I run those things full range, and I put a shit ton of power into them too.
Yeah.
So it's, they're getting, almost like 400 watts. If they're 4 ohm, they're getting 400 watts. If they're 8 ohm, they're getting probably 300 or something like that. But yeah, it's a tough one. Like what you were saying, when they have multiple drivers, they have more surface areas, right? So they're moving more air. So physics is definitely in play. It's just like having a subwoofer. And what's funny is when I actually used to have 3-way PAs, right? 15-inch, 6-inch, and this whatever horn 1-inch situation. But they were huge, and they were made of all wood cabinets. Now the ones I use, except for the subwoofer is still a wooden cabinet. They use that, I don't know, ABS something or that, or whatever QSC uses.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, to make them lighter and portable and all that.
Correct. Built-in handles and all that stuff.
A hole in it or something.
Right. Honestly, like that setup as opposed to the taller PAs is just better. It's more versatile, right? Like I had a dual 12 bandpass subwoofer, 1,000-watt RMS. Now I've moved to an 18-inch subwoofer that's 3,600 peak, 1,800 RMS. And I couldn't do that if I had those big towers. There was no use to bring all of that equipment. So I guess it depends on your application, really, which is better for you and your setup and your space. I mean, the 2 towers would have been great with the 18-inch subwoofer. Whoops, sorry. I smacked a speaker.
He said sorry to the speaker.
He's apologizing to the speaker.
Somebody.
Sorry. So yeah, it's one of those things. I think there's definitely pluses and minuses for both. Joe in his video says, look, you're going to have to put that thing on a stand. So you might as well go with the floor stander, but they're usually double the price, right? Like usually it's like 500 for the pair, and then it's like 1,000 for, each tower or something like that. Right.
And then you're probably still going to need about a subwoofer.
Yeah, so Paul asked that exact question. He's like, okay, in talking about a bookshelf versus a floor standing speaker, if they've got the exact same tweeter, the exact same mid-range, exact same drivers, crossovers, possibly, what are we paying for? Other than the additional wood.
I have a theory on that.
Go for it.
So typically floor standers, you have 3 bass drivers. Or more, less, more, 2 more drivers. Sure. And then your crossover, you're going to have more components for that. You're talking about more wood, so bigger enclosure. And then I'm wondering if they're building shipping into that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Those are way heavier and way bigger. And so think about how much more storage space. If you're a manufacturer, you have to have a bigger warehouse. So all these things kind of add up.
Add up.
So double the cost. Like these ELACs, bookshelves are $1,000 for the pair. And then the floor standers are $1,000 each. And sound-wise, I'll go bookshelf all day.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I'm not saying the floor standards sound bad, but if you're paying double the price,
I think
I would spend it somewhere else.
10-inch subwoofer for $500.
There it is.
Dude, that's even what I said in the video. I'm like, you pair these towers with a 10-inch sub. I'm like, well,
I think for most people that
now you're in for it for 2,500. So,
So
you know,
that was so back to the original, not the official question, but the original question of where's the point of diminishing returns. The question that I have is how much different are the drivers? A lot of times you'll see these high-end speakers and you're like, I know which drivers those are. I saw some other speakers the other day. I think they were $10,000, and they were the same Tang Band woofers that I used in a DIY project that I did.
Did you say Tang
I know.
Band?
Yeah, they're
that's the name of the
I'm like,
company.
I know those. Those are. I know the price of those speakers.
Tang Band.
I know all of the components
man.
on here. What am I? Why are they so expensive?
Yeah, right.
So it's not like you're paying 20 G's and the technology of the speaker is so different. It's not even the same motor structure. They're using some advanced technology. It's like, no, same magnet, coil, cone, and this is old technology.
And sometimes companies will go to these build houses like ScanSpeak, and they'll have them design them a specific speaker. They'll take something they have on the shelf and they'll tweak it for their needs. I mean, that's normal. But then there are other companies that don't do that at all. They'll just get something off the shelf. Like you and I could go to Parts Express right now and order the same parts.
Well, you look at the drivers. So Morel drivers, much more expensive. And you've done driver testing. So you've seen what the difference is between the very expensive stuff and the medium and the not so expensive. How much of a difference would you say you see when you've done those measurements, Aaron?
Well, I mean, so if you ignore the ones that are expensive and they shouldn't be, if you just kind of toss those out, because I've tested a fair share of those. A lot of those are Car Audio branded, and they may be like, for example, $800 for a pair of 8-inch woofers, like mid bass, not subwoofers, and they don't perform any better than something that's $100 a pair, and that's the truth. But to me, kind of the breaking point seems to be around the $300 mark. And then that's where the diminishing return starts to take over. If I'm talking about like a 6 or 7-inch woofer, that's when you get out of that Dayton audio. You start getting into the ScanSpeak technology with, a lot of solid engineering behind it. But then you got to say, is it worth it for me to pay over twice as much more money for a driver the same size? And then it depends on how you're using it. I mean, because a lot of times what you're paying for is more excursion with lower distortion. And if you don't need that excursion, like say if you're trying to build a bookshelf speaker, you may not need it to go down to 60 hertz. If 100 hertz is fine, you're going to put a subwoofer with it and you're fine. Why pay $300 for a pair of woofers when you could pay $100?
So would it be safe to say you're paying for linearity?
Yeah, you're
more
paying
accurate
for
response,
more accurate response at higher volume. That's really where the breaking point is, in my opinion, for drivers and speakers in general. Is
so power handling,
just being able to provide you with more output without bottoming out mechanically or having a lot of distortion or thermal compression where you're turning the volume up, but it's actually not getting louder, all those kind of things.
And I think you have to make sure that you're comparing, like not every bookshelf speaker versus a floor standing speaker are going to be kind of comparable. Like Ian mentioned, he said he kind of thinks that his Klipsch RP 500Ms, which that's from the Reference Premier series, which is actually a higher tier than their entry level R, which is the Reference series, the 620F, the F being floor standing. So you're kind of comparing a lower end floor standing to a higher end bookshelf. And so that might be why you like the bookshelf sound better, because they have a more of a refined tweeter and just probably have better components in that. So kind of to be fair, you'd need to compare that with maybe the RP
8000F. Or wait,
yeah,
no, that would be the 280F.
Yeah, something like that. Something
260F would be the at that whatever juncture. No, 3 years ago.
So it's hard not to mention the ELAC Unify reference because all the videos came out this morning. I have mine, Chana. Hopefully, Aaron, I want to see yours. And Michael, hopefully they send it to you. I like these speakers a lot.
Did you guys see my intro?
I didn't even
3, 1, 2,
No,
3.
did you see the little puppy? Dude, she
Oh, just
totally
over
acted
there.
it out. Like she like looked at the logo and then looked up at it. Like it was like obviously I couldn't plan
What
that.
can he like?
Yeah. I was just like, what's that? Because the dogs were enamored by the little turntable. They were like kind of like checking it out. They're like, what is this thing?
Have you tried putting one of the dogs on it?
Yeah.
And turn it on?
Oh no.
That'd be a
That's
cute
support their
video.
weight.
I'll try that. Yeah, for sure. And I know, I tossed those doggy pics in there or video clips for Tristan because I know everybody likes to see the pups. But yeah, man, I think it's a good speaker. I think for $2,000 a pair, I think there's a lot of competition in that price.
That's rough for that price, right?
Yeah.
That's what I try to avoid saying is they do what they're supposed to do. It's just, I don't know. I might look around at that price, but for the bookshelf, you don't have the
I think
bookshelf,
the
right?
bookshelf. Yeah, no, I don't.
1,000 for a pair, and I A/B'd them right back to back. And I'm like, I kind of like the bookshelf better. Yeah,
And I
6.5
know,
on there.
I know I'm used to hearing like 8-inch tweeter, or sorry, 8-inch woofers, and then like I had the RF-7.3s, like 10-inch woofers in the living room, and going down to the Focal Aria 926, which have two 6.5-inch woofers. I wasn't missing the 8-inch, but then when I went to these, like I was missing the 6.5s when I went to the ELACs.
Yeah, I can go with that.
So.
Yeah,
I think I
And
said the
you
same
took
thing.
all the measurements. We didn't talk about it at all, and I'm like, I wonder what Joe thought about these. And I'm like, oh my god, it's almost the exact same thing we said. Like if you pair these with the sub,
Yeah,
yeah, it was like the same thing. It's pretty
I
hilarious.
saw that.
Yeah.
I think it's just when I think ELAC, I used to think the small speakers that have way more bass than you'd expect. And right now, I'm getting the amount of bass that I would expect. It's not like it's less. It's just
not impressive.
It's you see 3, 5 1/4. You're like, how is that going to sound? And it sounds like that.
Yeah.
All right. Whereas before, I said right again, the UB5, original UB5 was 1 5 1/4, and you're hearing lower bass. And I think you can see that in the measurements. I'm going to do another video where I go more in depth, and the measurements say the same thing is what
Gotcha.
I experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.